On this episode, we share the deciding factors and process of our solar project installation on our home in British Columbia. We are Malcolm and Rachel, and welcome to our channel. We share everything about our retirement lifestyle.
Hi there. Today I want to talk to you about something a little bit different, but certainly something as we've got into our retirement that we've had the opportunity to explore in much more detail. Something we touched on a little bit when we were looping, and that is solar installation. Now, a solar installation for a boat is a very different thing than what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm really talking about a solar installation for our house and augmenting our grid connection with really putting solar panels on our roof and seeing, does it make sense? Is that something that we should do here on the West Coast? So first, maybe we'll start by talking about why did we do solar and why did we want to do solar? Well, one of the reasons, obviously, is we want to get as much reliance on our own generation of power as we possibly can, and less so on the grid. We have a very reliable grid here. We don't have to worry about outages. We've got very few outages over the last little while. We even have a generator that we brought with us when we came out west. I think it's only been used a couple of times. So the reality is we don't have a reliability issue with the grid, so that's not a reason why we did it. But we're here in BC, British Columbia, Canada. It has some very favorable policies that'll enable you to leverage how you're going to install your solar and how you're going to feed that back into the grid. So I just want to talk about why British Columbia, Canada, is as favorable as it is for installing solar and how it swayed our decision. One of the things is the cost. Now, the costs of solar implementations have varied dramatically, and obviously it depends on how big your install will be. When I first looked at installations many years ago, you'd spend upwards of $75,000 Canadian to install 10 kilowatts of power. That's a lot of money. And that's not something that we could even imagine then or now. But the reality is today, 20 years later, it's significantly cheaper to put solar panels on your roof. Not only is it cheaper, but the jurisdiction we live in really gives you the opportunity to get grants and interest-free loans that enable you to really amp up, if you like, your value when you start installing solar and feeding it back into the grid. So financially, let's explore some of those things that BC does offer. One is more of a federal grant, which is about $5,000 depending on how big your solar installation is. And that grant is really something you get that you don't have to pay back. It's something that is $5,000 against the implementation of your solar install. The other thing that is offered, and again, this is, I believe these are federal, is a loan, which is an interest-free loan, and it's upwards of 10 years on that loan. And really, whether you need the loan or not, it's a huge advantage to taking an interest-free loan for that amount of time. So other people's money is tied up in doing the installation versus your own. So those are two key factors. There's a third factor, which is net metering, which allows you to feed the power back into the grid. Now, in some jurisdictions, when you feed it back in, you really don't get credit for it. It can offset perhaps what you use, which this also does. So in other words, when we're generating solar power, we use it first. What we don't use gets pushed back into the grid. With British Columbia, and this is one of the big advantages that we found over Ontario, and you would have to check your own jurisdiction, when we generate that power and it goes back into the grid, it basically goes back into a credit bank. And that credit bank accumulates over 12 months. At the end of that 12 months, if you have an excess in that bank, they'll pay it out to you at the bulk rate for power. Now, that's not going to, make you rich, but it means that the more you generate, the more you push into that bank, the more it's going to offset at the end of the year just from a cash perspective. And again, not very much. But the biggest piece is obviously what you consume and you have produced is not something you're going to be paying for, because when that sun is out and that power is being generated, if you have your fridge running or if you have a light on, you're using your own energy. when the sun goes down, obviously the solar is not generating, and then you use the grid. But if you've generated more during that daylight hour, then in fact you have a net benefit because you generated more power than you've used, whether the sun is out and when the sun is actually not out at night. Now, hopefully that's not too confusing, but the reality for us is British Columbia does allow net metering. It does allow you to push that power back into the grid, and it does allow you to bank that so that at the end of those 12 months, you can get some of that back at that bulk rate. So let's answer why we installed solar on the West Coast. Doesn't it rain all the time? Well, the reality is at certain months, it does. So if you're looking at the winter, and winter being, let's say, from November through to the end of February, yeah, it rains a lot. And that rain does impact your ability to generate solar. I'll talk about that in just briefly when I start talking about generation in the summer. Now, generation in the summer is a different story entirely. We haven't been here full-time more than a year and somewhat almost 2 years. When the summer comes around, the rain basically stops. What we have seen, and I'm sure many of you have heard about the forest fire issues that we've had over here in the last 2 years, that's primarily because it's so dry and it's so sunny and hot that the forest fires just spark up, whether it be human caused or not. That sun gives us the opportunity to generate a tremendous amount of power for a very long period of time during the day. In the winter, we have very short days. The sun sets at 4:30 and it doesn't rise until just after 8 a.m. When we start getting into the summer months, we have 16 hours of sun, all not usable. Let's call it 11 hours of usable sun, but that's a significant amount of sun that you can use and generate that power. And that's why we decided to go with solar in the West Coast. The sun and the amount of sun that you get really starting, let's say, April, May, right through to September, October, is significant. And the hope would be we'll gather a tremendous amount of credit from BC Hydro as we push that energy back into the grid that will offset the amount we use in the winter months. The goal being we try and get as close to net zero as we can as far as electricity use. So we generate in excess in the summer and we use a bit more in the winter, but because we've generated that much in the summer, in theory, we get close to zero as far as the amount we totally consume across a whole year. So let's talk about how long it takes to do this. And it will vary. Obviously, certain jurisdictions, perhaps there's a lot more of this happening, so you have capacity in those installing companies to do it. In other areas, there may be shortages of certain parts and components. For us, we basically started this in the fall of 2023. I'm going to say August, September. And that's when we first started to reach out to the companies, ask them to really reply to us on our proposal, give us a proposal as it relates to what we're looking for. We then interacted with them on numerous occasions, and really we committed to do the work in December. And that meant not only was it committing to the installer, but it was doing all the applications, and there's basically two major applications we needed to do for the grants and for the loans as well. And that enabled us to initiate the process just before Christmas. No one wanted to install over Christmas, which I understand. And then when it came to installation, February is when we actually did the physical installation. The installation itself, and we have 14 panels, 500 watts each, that are sitting on our south-facing roof. And it's all one continuous line of panels. They didn't have to break it to different roof faces. It's all on that south side. It took basically 2 days, two, let's call it very short days, to install everything on there. And our configuration is such that it is, as I mentioned, 14 panels, 500 watts. There are 7 micro inverters that are actually sitting up on the roof. And those microinverters generate 110 voltage right at that microinverter. and then they all come back down and they're fed directly into our fuse panel, which is a 200 amp fuse panel. So it's actually feeding directly into the fuse panel that is also connected to the grid. And that enables us, when we use it first, so when we generate it, we use it. When we don't use it, it feeds it back into the grid. Very seamless, simple. There's no big boxes, there's no switches, there's one additional fuse in your panel, and that's it as far as what you see. And that made it a lot easier for us than having, single big inverters. And I understand that you can have a standalone inverter, and there's some advantages to that. Shut-off switches. We just wanted it to work. The one difference it will have, if you lose the grid, so if the power in the grid goes down, there are safeguards in those microinverters that will stop it generating power, and it will stop pushing power to your panel and to the grid. And that is a fail-safe. It ensures that if the grid goes down, you're not pushing power into that grid. So if there are line people working trying to restore power, you're not pushing power down those lines, and eventually you could have a serious issue for them. So this just ensures there is no capability to cause problems if the grid goes down. The one thing to keep in mind, we don't have a battery. If you had a battery and a storage capacity, then you could do a slightly different installation. But we elected not to do the battery, and primarily it's because our connection is very reliable at this point with the grid. So we didn't feel it was necessary to invest that additional money in putting batteries that we really would seldom use. Now, I'd also want to talk about installers. So when we did our solar installation of about 1.3 kilowatts on the boat, we were the installer. So we did everything. Now, when it came to the house, that's slightly bigger. And it's not something I really wanted to be doing as far as climbing all over the roof like a monkey and pulling up panels and drilling into the roof itself. And I wanted to have a more robust type of installation. So we went out and really asked 2 local install companies as to, what would they suggest. These were our intentions, these were our requirements. And we said, hey, come back and tell us what you think is the best way to do it. They both came back. We chose one of them based on really the amount of attention they applied and the amount of attention they gave us as it related to keeping engaged through the process. They were very, very helpful. They offered up all sorts of options, solutions. They did site visits. They came to us and said, these are options that you can apply, whether it be the inverters that are ground-based or a single inverter or microinverters, the configuration of the panels. There was a number of things that really said to us, we always go with references with a lot of these companies. And they provided multiple references, some of which we could go and visit. And we talked to the individuals, the homeowners, and say, how was the service? You've had it for, X number of months, years. How is it not only performed, but also how has the company been when you have an issue? Because typically, when there's issues, it's when it's most important to have that relationship with the company.
The process for applying for the federal grant and interest-free loan first involves getting an energy audit of the house. They check the quality of the windows and doors and other things like the hot water tank, insulation, and method of heating and cooling. They also do an air pressure test with this device mounted on the front door to look for air leaks. We filled out forms online and submitted the quote from our installer, and after some time, our application was accepted. The next step was for our installer, Shift Energy, to come and do a pre-installation evaluation to ensure the correct panels and equipment were ordered prior to installation day. They checked the electrical panel, inside the attic, and even got on the roof to measure and make sure all the panels would fit as expected. So today we're getting our solar project installed on our roof. Are you excited?
It's an exciting day.
Yeah.
Today is the day where we've been without solar for, six months because we had solar on the boat, and used to looking at my phone and seeing what we're generating, and I haven't been able to do that. So now we are getting 7 kilowatts of solar installed on our roof, which is all south facing, and by the end of today or tomorrow, we'll be looking on our phones and seeing how much we're generating.
Super exciting.
Very exciting.
Yeah, we can hear them working up on the roof right now. They're installing the brackets for the frame that will support the panels and making sure it's all sealed. And you had a little...
Actually, I was able to go and see
it.
Not only how it gets installed, like the brackets, because obviously anything that goes on your roof, you're concerned about leaking. Yeah. But also I wanted to have a little look at the technology they're using. Mm-hmm. So what inverters are they using and how are they installed? And he showed me a couple of them, and it's new technology to me. On the boat, we had something called Victron, but here it's a little different. Maybe we'll do
we'll go over that a little bit later.
Yeah, go through the whole video. But today, exciting day.
Installation day. Good morning. It's an absolutely gorgeous day. There's a huge high-pressure system over the Pacific Northwest, including Vancouver Island, and it's amazing for getting outside and walking and seeing out over the mountains. They're super clear, and it's just a gorgeous day to be outside. And it's also a great day to be outside completing the solar installation. Today is day 2 of the solar installation, and let's see how the guys are doing. On day 1, they did some wiring. They put the mounts on the roof, and they put the frame for the solar panels to be attached onto the roof. And today is the installation of the solar panels themselves. Maybe by the end of the day, we'll see the power of the sun at work. On the first day of installation in early February, the 3 guys prepared the wiring, installed the roof mounts and aluminum frame ready to receive the panels. The framing was left too long on purpose and trimmed off after the panels were installed. On the second day, 14 panels were lifted up onto the roof one at a time and secured to the frame. There is 1 microinverter for every 2 panels. Once all 14 panels were installed, it was time to make it live. We had an amazing day of sun, and even though it wasn't a full day, we produced 20 kilowatt hours. Once the project was complete, we had a post-audit done and the paperwork submitted to the government to finish up the grant and interest-free loan application. It's been just over a month, and at this time of year, we still had mixed weather days of rain and cloud and sun, but to date we've totaled over 450 kilowatt hours, averaging about 12.5 kilowatt hours per day. In early February, we had just under 10 hours of daylight. As the days get longer, we're getting more and more sun, and we anticipate in our dry summer months averaging a lot more than that 12.5 kilowatt hours per day. This year, in 2024, spring equinox fell on March 19th, and this is the day the sun crosses the equator from the southern hemisphere to the northern hemisphere. That day saw exactly 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of darkness. The closer we get to summer solstice, on June 20th, which is the longest day of the year, the more sun shines over our solar panels. In fact, being at the 49th parallel, the sun will give us over 16 hours of daylight. We're still in the early stages of monitoring our solar project, but we anticipate producing more power than we consume in the summer. BC Hydro allows us to bank extra power by feeding it directly into the grid and use it as credit, which will help us offset the slightly higher electricity use in the winter months. Shift Energy uses an app called EMA, and this is how it looks.
So this is the app that we use to actually monitor our solar as it's going every day, so we can see just how much we're generating. Just to give you an idea, at the top here, we're looking at around 12:30 today, so we're right in the middle of the day. We're generating 4,800 watts. So that's how many watts the panels are putting out right now, and this is going directly into what we use in the house. Our capacity for the panels is 7 kilowatts, so that's the total. We have 14 panels that are 500 watts each. Over here is our total energy that we've done today. So we've generated 9.44 kilowatt hours. So you generate watts, but every hour it measures how many kilowatt hours you have put in. So 9.44 is sort of right where it should be, around 12:30. We have total energy since the system's been live at 667.7 kilowatt hours. And they have this little stat here that just tells you how much CO2 you've reduced. So basically, we've avoided using 665 kilograms. So that's kind of a dashboard. It tells you what you're doing. As soon as you start generating, this starts to go up. And then obviously, as the day progresses, that will go down. We'll go to the next one, and that's on the bottom. It says modules. This tells you these are all our modules. So each box there represents one of the panels that we have. And the filled in area is how much power we're generating. So if you looked at the details there, you can see it's around 330, 200 and something. So each panel is then shown. This is important because it'll allow you to see if a panel is not functioning. And then the same thing is the company that manages or actually maintains this for us, they can see this as well. So if they see a panel's out, they can proactively come and actually deal with that panel rather than waiting. The next one is really the trending data. Not only does it show you the daily view as far as what you're doing today, but how many days in the month, the overall months and the yearly. You can see what your total energy has been for today, but you can also see what your peak power was. So today, which is the 19th of March, our peak, our very top power was 5,277 watts. And that's when the sun was at its highest. If you look at how much we've created, you can see it started around 7-ish, and then it just keeps going. And on a perfectly sunny day, it's a nice arc up and then down. The idea here is you can see your daily. So this is now the months in the days in the month, I should say. And you can see from the 13th onward, we've had a really sunny streak. So it's just really pumping the power in. You can also look at monthly. So we've only had it for 2 months, and you can already see that March is a much better month. And then obviously yearly is just going to have one line. So it can just show you what that one line is. And you can see right here, this is our total generated for the year. And it's the same number we talked about previously. This also talks about our average daily. So we're averaging about 15.5 kilowatt hours per day. And that's increasing dramatically because if you go back to what our daily was, which is right here, you can actually click on them and you can see yesterday, as an example, we did 33.67 kilowatt hours. And that's obviously much bigger than the average, which is now 16.5. But you can see that that's just going to increase, the average will, as we start getting more and more days that are quite high. Anyway, so this is the app. It's on your phone. You can see it real time, and it gives you a real view as to what's happening on your panels and how much you've generated.
We're excited to see how our solar project performs over time. If you have any questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much for watching, and we hope you're having a great day.